For years, audiences have known Eamonn Holmes as the man with the quick wit, warm smile, and effortless charm that could brighten even the dullest morning. On television, he always appeared confident, relaxed, and completely in control. Whether he was joking with guests, teasing co-hosts, or handling emotional interviews, he carried himself like someone who never truly lost balance. But behind the cameras, things were not always as easy as they seemed. There was a period in his life when the pressure became overwhelming. Long workdays, constant public attention, physical exhaustion, and personal struggles slowly began to wear him down. The cheerful personality viewers loved was still there, but underneath the humor and polished professionalism, Eamonn was quietly fighting to keep himself together. Most people around him had no idea how difficult things had become. Friends noticed he looked more tired than usual. Co-workers saw moments where his smile seemed forced. Even during light-hearted conversations, there were times when he drifted into silence for a second too long before pulling himself back into presenter mode. The public only saw the polished version, but internally he was struggling. And then came the moment that changed everything. Oddly enough, it didn't happen during a major television interview or dramatic public event. It happened during one simple conversation, a conversation so ordinary that nobody around them could have guessed it would leave such a powerful emotional impact. It was late after a long working day. Eamonn had been dealing with stress, frustration, and exhaustion for weeks. The pressure of constantly appearing positive had become emotionally draining. He was sitting quietly, barely speaking, clearly distracted by whatever thoughts were running through his mind. That's when someone close to him looked at him and said 7 simple words. "You don't always have to be strong." The sentence was short, quiet, almost casual, but for Eamonn, those words hit harder than anyone expected. For a moment, he didn't even respond. He later admitted that hearing those words felt strangely emotional because he had spent so much time convincing himself that strength meant never slowing down, never complaining, and never letting anyone see weakness. Suddenly, someone had given him permission to stop pretending everything was fine. And honestly, that tiny moment changed him completely. What made the situation even more emotional was how unexpected it felt. Eamonn was known for being the reassuring one, the calm voice, the dependable personality, the man making everyone else feel comfortable. Very few people ever stopped to ask how he was actually feeling himself. So when somebody finally did, it caught him completely off guard. According to people close to him, the conversation that followed became deeply personal, emotional, and surprisingly healing. For the first time in a long while, Eamonn opened up honestly. He admitted he felt exhausted. He admitted the pressure of constantly entertaining people could become mentally draining. He admitted there were days when he questioned whether he was pushing himself too hard. And once he started talking, the emotions he had been bottling up for months suddenly became impossible to hide. But despite the emotional weight of the moment, there was also something strangely beautiful about it. The conversation wasn't dramatic or overly serious. In fact, there were moments of laughter mixed into the honesty. That's part of what made it feel so real. At one point, Eamonn apparently joked that he had reached the age where standing up too quickly now counted as a dangerous activity. The room burst into laughter. Someone teased him for making dramatic noises every time he sat down. Eamonn fired back by claiming those noises were important survival sounds. The playful teasing instantly lifted the mood, and that balance between humor and vulnerability became one of the most powerful parts of the entire experience. Because life is often exactly like that. Even during difficult moments, people still laugh. Even when struggling emotionally, funny little conversations still happen. And sometimes the people who appear strongest are secretly hoping someone notices they're tired. That emotional realization stayed with Eamonn long after the conversation ended. Over time, fans also began noticing subtle changes in him. He seemed more relaxed, more open, and more willing to speak honestly about the challenges of balancing work, health, family, and public life. Viewers connected deeply with that honesty. Instead of pretending life was perfect, Eamonn began embracing the messy, awkward, emotional reality that everyone experiences. And strangely enough, audiences loved him even more for it. One reason people feel so connected to Eamonn Holmes is because he doesn't come across like a distant celebrity. He feels familiar, like the funny relative who always has a sarcastic comment ready during family dinners, but also quietly checks whether everyone is okay. That warmth became even more obvious after his emotional story spread online. Fans flooded social media with supportive messages. Many admitted they saw themselves in his struggle. Some shared stories about feeling pressured to stay strong all the time. Others thanked him for reminding people that vulnerability is not weakness. One viewer wrote that hearing his story encouraged them to finally open up to their own family after months of hiding stress and anxiety. Another said the 7-word message felt like something millions of people
And
secretly
honestly,
needed to
they
hear.
were probably right. Modern life moves fast. People constantly feel pressure to appear successful, happy, confident, and emotionally stable, even when they feel exhausted inside. Social media especially has created a culture where everyone feels expected to present a perfect version of themselves. That's why Eamonn's story resonated so strongly. It reminded people that even public figures struggle privately. It reminded viewers that exhaustion does not mean failure. And, perhaps most importantly, it reminded people how powerful simple kindness can be. Because those 7 words were not grand or complicated. They weren't part of a motivational speech. They didn't come from a therapist or self-help book. They came from a genuine human moment. And sometimes those moments change people more than anything else ever could. As the story continued spreading online, fans also began revisiting some of Eamonn's funniest television moments over the years. Clips of his playful sarcasm, accidental mistakes, and hilarious reactions started circulating again, reminding audiences why they've always found him so entertaining. One old clip showed him completely losing focus during a cooking segment because he became distracted by pastries sitting nearby. Another featured him jokingly arguing with co-hosts over whether naps should count as exercise. Fans joked that his true talent was making everyday frustrations sound hilarious. But beneath all the comedy, people now saw something deeper. They saw a man who had quietly carried pressure for years while continuing to make audiences smile. That realization made viewers appreciate him even more. Ironically, his emotional vulnerability became one of his strongest moments of his entire public image. Instead of damaging his reputation, the emotional honesty strengthened the connection audiences felt toward him. People trust authenticity. They connect with imperfections, and they remember emotional honesty far longer than polished performances. The story also sparked wider conversations online about emotional burnout, mental exhaustion, and the unrealistic expectations people place on themselves. Many fans admitted they rarely tell others when they're struggling because they fear appearing weak or dramatic. Others said they related to the pressure of constantly being the strong one for friends and family. Suddenly, Eamonn's emotional moment became much bigger than one conversation. It became a reminder that people need support more often than they admit. And perhaps the most touching part of the entire story was how simple the turning point really was. No massive life-changing event, no dramatic intervention, just 7 honest words spoken at exactly the right moment. Sometimes that's all it takes, a reminder, a conversation, a small moment where someone finally feels seen. As weeks passed, Eamonn appeared noticeably more cheerful during public appearances and interviews. Friends reportedly said he seemed lighter emotionally, more relaxed, and more comfortable slowing down occasionally instead of constantly forcing himself forward. Of course, his humor never disappeared. If anything, it became even sharper. During one appearance, he joked that emotional growth unfortunately had not improved his ability to wake up early in the morning. Fans loved seeing his personality remain playful despite the emotional discussion surrounding him. That combination of humor and sincerity became the reason so many people stayed emotionally invested in the story, because real life is never entirely sad or entirely funny. Usually it's both, and Eamonn Holmes somehow captured that perfectly. There's also something romantic about the entire situation, not necessarily in a dramatic love story way, but in the emotional intimacy of feeling understood by someone during a difficult time. The idea that 7 caring words could break through months of emotional exhaustion feels incredibly human. People don't always remember giant speeches. Sometimes they remember tiny sentences forever, especially when those words arrive during moments where someone feels completely overwhelmed. For Eamonn, that conversation became one of those unforgettable moments, a reminder that strength is not about pretending everything is fine, a reminder that vulnerability can actually bring people closer together, and a reminder that even the people who make others smile sometimes need reassurance themselves. By the time the story finished spreading across social media, fans everywhere seemed to agree on one thing. The emotional moment didn't make Eamonn Holmes look weak, it made him look real. And in today's world, authenticity like that is surprisingly rare. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more emotional celebrity stories, heartfelt television moments, and entertaining behind-the-scenes drama that viewers everywhere are talking about.